I was in the Army, and I had a 3-year enlistment, but I was in for 2 years and 7 months.
I served in the U.S. Navy. I served 2 years, 1943 to 1945.
I was in the United States Marine Corps for 4 years.
I was in the U.S. Air Force, and I was in there almost 4 years.
I served in the Army for 20 years, from 1988 to 2008.
The U.S. Navy for 3 years.
I served 3 years with the United States Army.
In the Army National Guard. I served in there 3 years, and then I went active duty. I went active duty into the Navy, and I served there 4 years. And then I got out for a little while, and then I went reservist in the Coast Guard for 7 years. I was in quite a few operations. I was in Operation Uphold Democracy, and the oil embargo for Haiti, and then I was also in Desert Shield, Desert Storm, and Operation Iraqi Freedom.
But I wasn't involved in battles. That's how I got the. Well, I don't have it with me. The ribbon.
Oh, okay.
I was involved in two battles.
The Iraq War.
I was involved in the Vietnam War.
I served in Vietnam.
I was part of Desert Storm within 6 months after I went in the military, and then part of Operation Iraqi Freedom.
I was in Vietnam for 9 months, in Da Nang at the Fleet Air Support Unit. Well, what the Fleet Air Support Unit did in Da Nang, Vietnam, was the aircraft carriers were out in the ocean, and then they were making bombing runs on North Vietnam and South Vietnam where needed, and the Fleet Air Support Unit would refuel the planes if they didn't have enough fuel to get back to the ship, or if the planes got shot up and couldn't land on the ship anymore, they landed at our base, and then we either patched them up or refueled them or whatever was needed so that they maintained their mission.
It was pretty easy. My family is military, so I started out in the National Guard with my dad, uncle, brother, and cousin. We were all in there in the same unit. And then I wanted to see more of the world, so I went into the active duty side. So I joined the Navy to see the world. I read the commercial and loved it. And I did that, and I saw everything that I wanted to see, did a lot of things that I wanted to do, and then I got out. A few years later, the port security unit in Port Clinton was ramping up to be deployed again, and that piqued my interest, so I joined the Coast Guard to be a part of a port security unit to go overseas in support of the operation to defend against the USS Cole incident, where a small ship took out a Navy ship, and that's what our unit was designed to do, was to stop that type of attack.
Well, I can't swim, so that made left the Navy out. They've got good schools, and yeah, my dad was in the Army, and so I had gone in the Army. Plus, I had other friends that were in Vietnam that were in the Army, so I went in the Army.
I wanted to be a Marine ever since I was a little kid. Me and my best friend Mike, his dad was a Marine in Vietnam and was wounded, and for as long as I can remember, I always wanted to be a Marine, so that's why I chose the Marines.
Well, I'm originally from West Virginia, and I wanted an education where I can use it when I got out of service, so I went in the Air Force.
I knew I didn't want to be a Marine because they're the crazy ones, but I just randomly picked the Army, and that's what I went with.
Ever since I was 5 years old, my uncle was in the Navy, and I liked the uniform, so ever since I was 5 years old, I thought when I get old enough, which I went in when I was 17, and right out of high school, 10 days after I graduated from high school, I went in, and I just always liked the Navy.
I had one idea. I wanted to. Everyone calls me dumb and stupid for doing it, but I wanted to jump out of an airplane. So I become airborne when I got into the service jumping.
Of 17. 17 when I joined.
That's so crazy.
I was 19.
I went 5 days after my 18th birthday when I went to the Navy.
To overcome adversity, to stay with it until the job is done. Having a team to rely on was probably the biggest thing. Everybody do their part, and the team accomplishes what they want to accomplish together. I was in the military for a lot of years to get to that point, and my last years in the Coast Guard really helped to bring that team atmosphere together.
There's a lot of stuff that the people in America don't know about stuff that happens in the real world. It's probably the biggest thing I learned. And the best advice I ever got was always take care of those that take care of you. So
Most important thing was trust your training. Training's everything. You do it so much it becomes second nature. So if you're in a combat situation, you don't have to think about what you've got to do. You just react and you do it. So I would say that.
Was it easy to trust the people around you?
Yes, you have no choice but to trust them. They're trained every day just like you are. So you build not just a team, but you also you become family. Especially when you're overseas, there's not a whole lot of Americans over there. So on your off time, you're spending time with the same people that you're training with every day, and it becomes a tight-knit family.
Don't trust everybody. Just trust people that you really know that you can trust.
Jesus Christ.
my family, growing up, my family was a huge thing for us. Family was everything. So when I was over there, I thought about my family. When I was in the Marine Corps, just stationed on stateside, I kept in contact with my family. That's a big part of who I am. So my family's always been what keeps me going or gives me motivation, so that didn't change from the time I was in, before or after. It's always been my family.
Hope when I served was every time I knew when I came home, either from deployments or field time or field exercises, that I knew I was coming home to a wife that would put me back together, and then ship me back out when I needed to go back out. And it's the truth. She was my backbone. I think that's why I did 20 years. If it wasn't for her, I don't know if I would have did 20 years. It's a hard life. I mean, like I said, you play hard and you train hard. But I don't have no regrets about anything. I know even the thing is about the Army or any military branch, they always tell you as a young soldier or Marine or airman or sailor that the military don't stop when you get out. There's always somebody to take your place, and they will be well trained just like you are or even more. So that's one thing I don't really need hope for. I know even though I left the Army in 2008, they haven't skipped a beat. Mm-hmm. There's always somebody that's ready to succeed what I set my goals for, and they either have the same goals or they're going to exceed what I've done. So I have the utmost confidence in our military and always will.
Well, I feel that the United States is a good country, the best country in the world, and just proud to serve for the United States.
I was fortunate enough, I don't know how that happened, but I had a good wife because I lost her 30 years ago.
Keep supporting the military. Keep flying the flags, and keep having the things that kind of bring out the military to come support things. 4th of July is a huge time for the military, and Memorial Days and things like that are always a reflecting time for the military. So those types of events and appreciation of the military is always good, and that helps people to cope and helps them to really remember of what they did and what they did to serve, and that we are appreciated. Military discounts are always good too.
What I would like to do is be able to work with some vets, and but I don't know if the community can do anything like that to help. But you know, but really, I don't think you know, I love America, and it just I don't think there's really anything that they can do for me, I think.
I don't know that it's anything that anyone else can do. It's I don't know, it's hard dealing with people. Always are like, oh, thank you, I want to thank you for your service, and it's great, but like I told you, I wanted to be a Marine forever, so it's like an awkward thing. I don't know, there's no, the community does good, you know, our local community is big on veterans, so there's not really anything you can do. It's just one of those, hey, treat us normal, I guess. I mean, I don't know. You can't really do anything. Like, the community's good as long as you stay patriotic. And
Well, I think the community's done a lot now. They're doing they're doing what they should have done before, when the Vietnam War was going on with people coming out. I mean, we went over because we were told to go over there, and but we didn't get you know, the recognition that all the other veterans got in the wars today.
So just like as Clyde in general, just knowing what you guys did and the recognition helps.
Yeah, it's helping now. It's helping now.
Really nothing. I know a lot of people, they talk about veterans when they come back from wars, they're screwed up in the head and they're not worth anything anymore. I think that's BS. Veterans bring a lot to the table. They bring integrity, they bring hard work, structure. You don't really have to worry about them when they're not at work. They're going to be there the next day on time, usually early. But the biggest thing is some people just don't like veterans, and I don't understand that. You know, some veterans give up their whole lives. I gave up 20 years of my life, but I loved it. I really did. I wish I could have stayed in, but I got old, and it's a young man's game. So.
Really not a whole lot. The Vietnam veteran is treated, and all the veterans are really treated quite well now. I noticed that Cedar Point offers free days for veterans. There's when we first came home from Vietnam, you know, we were called baby killers and not treated very well. But since these other wars have progressed, all the veterans now are treated quite well. I mean, about any place you go, if you ask for a veterans discount, they'll give it to you. Just for instance, the other day I went to Gildemeister's to get some tires, and I asked them about a discount, and they gave me 10% off on a set of tires. So the community's doing quite well, all the businesses and so on, and they're hiring more veterans, and really, I think the veterans are treated very well.
At my age, I don't think I need to be comfortable anymore. I like for our veterans to be accepted as a veteran. They've earned that right, at least that. And that would be enough for me.
Probably, to me, it was to get a job because being from West Virginia is just coal mines, and so I had to find out where I was going to start my life working, and I decided to come to Ohio, and I ended up here because I had some relatives in Norwalk, and so I started working from there.
There really wasn't a hard part. Like I said, it was just finding jobs for veterans. It was hard at first, but once I did, like I said, it wasn't, the civilian side wasn't as structured and disciplined as the military side. A lot of us veterans, we like to say there's no integrity in the civilian world. It's like everybody's out for themselves, and it's not like that in the military.
getting into the routine, not knowing if the public accepted us. When we came home, we wasn't accepted back into the communities or anything like that. So that was the hardest part.
It wasn't too bad. There was some things that surprised me when I came back from Vietnam. My first thunderstorm, I jumped underneath the table because I was used to rocket attacks in Da Nang, and that was what we always did over there, was either find a bunker or get low when the rockets came in at us. So it took a while.
I was in the reserves for a lot of the time that I was in the military, so the work to guard mentality was always there. Transitioning back from active duty was a lot tougher. I was used to setting my own hours and doing the things that we needed to do, and working until the job was done. In the civilian lifestyle, it's a little different. You work 8 to 4, and then you're done, and you come back the next day to do it. In the military, you work till you're done, regardless of the time. So transitioning back wasn't terribly hard. It was just a little bit more getting used to time frames.
Well, I didn't have any problem because I was not in combat. The combat that I had was playing football and getting my head beat in for a while, and so I didn't have any of that. In fact, during Veterans Day, I feel bad sometimes because I saw guys that had been really wounded, and and I end up playing football. And I talked to other veterans, that were over there in Vietnam and talked to them, and they told me that they said, Dave, don't you ever feel bad because you were in and you served, and maybe somebody that was coming from Vietnam that was in Korea, by playing football, they were able to get their minds on something else. So, and then really, that's what God's plan was for me, and so, but I didn't have any trouble because I didn't experience what they did.
Well, I never have any problem. Like I said, I was born and raised in the farm, and we was working just as long as we get old enough, and that was it. When I went into training in San Diego, I talked to the other guys from this area and farther north, and they were making 75 cents an hour working the plant. I was getting paid 10 cents an hour.
Wow. For hard work, huh?
Yeah.
10 cents an hour.
Yeah.
Well, it was hard at first because when we got out, we were told we had to change in civilian clothes at the airport in Washington, in the state of Washington, before we could travel back to our homes. And because at that time the war protesters were really picking on people at the airport in uniform, so we had to come back, and that was hard.
That's a struggle. I retired in '08 after 20 years, and about the first 4 years I struggled with just going back into, I guess, civilian society. The military is actually structured to a point to where if you spend as many years as I did, it becomes second nature and part of your life. I mean, when I was coming here on vacation, everything is scripted, where we're going to stop at for gas, potty breaks, stuff like that. So that's pretty much it. It's a struggle. I struggled for 4 years. I wasn't doing anything crazy. It's just I couldn't adapt. I was so used to being in charge of people, and now I was being the one that had to go do the little stuff. But it took some time, but I got used to it.
It was hard when I first came home. Little stories like you'll hear, and it happened to me. The second day I was home, my dad and I was out car shopping. Car backfired and I hit the ground. And my dad was sitting there laughing at me, but he said he understood me. Well, I looked funny laying on the ground, concrete. But it was hard because normal things that you wouldn't automatically do, we wouldn't do it as a civilian.
questions?
Absolutely. In a minute. In a minute.
Not at 69. I think it's for younger guys. But it'd be nice but I have always said if something happened here, I would still go fight, you know. Even though I didn't fight, I would.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, I advise anybody that, and like in my case, to enlist in the Navy. I like it. Yeah, of course I don't know what the other brings to the service, how they deal with it, but yeah, I advise people.
Oh, definitely, yeah. I wouldn't change it for the world. I'd enlist again.
I don't know. It's a different time, different era. People going in today, a lot of them are going in for jobs. You know, the work back then we went in because we wanted to serve the country, and there still is some thinking that way, but a lot go in for a job and education.
Would you and
Yes. Just the brotherhood, the family atmosphere. I don't regret going in the military. Like I said, I fell in love with it, but it's the close-knitness. I mean, I got a couple friends here. One was an Army Ranger. His name was Randy Miller. He stays in contact with his buddies to this day. It's just a family atmosphere that once it gets in your blood, it's hard to let go.
Oh yeah, I would if I'm 66 years old now, so I don't think anybody would take me. But if there was a war broke out and I was absolutely needed, and they would take me, I would be right there to sign up.
Yes.
Why?
Right now, at my age, I would rather go now. That would leave a young guy to come home and take care of his family or whatever. Yes, I'd do it again.
Country.
Absolutely. I would absolutely encourage anyone, male or female, to serve in the military. It's a great way to build friendships. It's a great way to build a sense of accomplishment, and a great way to find some direction. The military offers jobs in training in all aspects of life, and it's a good way to kind of learn. If you don't have the direction of what you want to do coming out of high school, that's a good way to learn it.
I sure would. In fact, we talked to my grandsons, and I've talked to my granddaughter. She's at Cedarville College and has options to help pay for school, but she's doing good right now. But yeah, I would sure encourage people to go. You can tell a big difference when you're in the workforce. I work construction, and you can tell guys that have been in service, we all get along, and they know how to talk to people in authority, and they do what they're asked to do.
Well, not really. You had to like the service. I don't care what kind of service. Could be the Navy, Marines, Air Force, Army, any. But you had to like it.
You know, I get asked a lot because I have sons that, you know, what I want them to serve, and I mean, it's something that's inside you. You can't, I had people tell me not to serve, you know, that cared about me and that had served, but it's something that's either in you or it's not. And if you do it, if I knew someone that I cared about wanted to join, I would talk to them about maybe how to do it and what the right steps, but I would never tell anyone not to join, and I wouldn't pressure someone to join because it's just got to be something you want to do.
Well, you know, speaking from a personal level, I feel that every young person getting out of high school, especially men and women, if want, should serve some kind of service just to see what life is about in the service and everything. And some can make a career and some won't, but they still should serve some kind of a service.
You know, me and my wife talk about this, and I always crack jokes about it. In Europe, like in Germany, it's mandatory. They have to do 18 months. All males in Germany have to do 18 months in the German army, which is called the Bundeswehr. Otherwise, they can't even get jobs at a local fast food joint. But if they do serve, they job place them. They do on-the-job training. So when they do finish their 18 months, not only do they help them find jobs, the Army also helps them get their licenses, because they can't get their license over there until they're 21 years old.
Oh, wow.
You know, and it's very extensive driver's training compared to here. But I think the Americans, we joke about it all the time. I think all kids, even in the States, should at least do 12 months. That way they would understand what people volunteer for. I mean, I volunteered for 4 years. I was going to take the college money and run and go to school, but I ended up staying 20 years, and now I'm a full-time college student right now that's graduating next year. You know, so.
Absolutely. I think anybody who's undecided on what they want to do should look into the armed forces.
Country?
Yes. At 18, I don't know if the kids are ready to really take the world on. I guess it's something they could do till they made their mind up what they wanted to do. And it's a good way to get a good education.
I have a good support system around me. My faith, my church, has always been a part of my life, and then my family, also being military, it was easy to cope because of having them to rely on.
Hope then, or
No, you know, that never bothered me because the first place is nothing here. Empty. No, I never was bothered with that, so thank God for that. Yeah.
yeah.
Like I said, I talked to a lot of guys that I served with, and we're a big brotherhood. So, and all of us go through the same thing. You know, we've lost a lot of guys to the 22 a day that I served with, and I think you just kind of, it's just day to day. I don't know. You just gotta, you think about all the reasons why you should just, you know, I mean, why you need to do what you need to do. You know, I got kids and a wife, so you try to talk to the guys you served with, the ones that are doing good and the ones that are doing bad, so you can lift each other up, you know?
Probably, you know, like, you know, you got your families and everything when you get back, and they're glad to see you back home and everything, and so they do everything they can, you know, to make it life back to normal.
I really don't have a coping problem. I like to work in my yard. That's what I do. Some veterans, they're a lot more messed up than what I was lucky. I came home with all of my fingers and toes, and some of them have a hard time coping. A lot of them just, I don't know, they just can't blend back in with society. It takes some time to get used to, but some of the veterans just can't cope with getting back into society. So.
I don't know. There's not a lot of problems to cope with, but you know, as long as we have a job and stay occupied.
I held it in a long time, and then it just, over the years, I've just let it go. I've talked with other veterans and that what they've done and everything else and what they did, and I come to see that they did the same thing and had to cope with the same thing. So a lot of it is due with talking with other veterans.
Just thank the community for the events they do have, and for holding up the military when they come home and when they need help, being there for them.
The best thing that I can encourage anybody is to know where you're going when you die. The Bible says, "It is appointed unto man wants to die, and after this judgment." It's too late when people die to make that decision. And so I was in first the Lord's Army before I was in the U.S. Army. My encouragement would be for people to repent and come to know, trust in Christ as their Lord and Savior, because one day we're all going to die. No matter how healthy we are, and God's not going to judge us whether we were a doctor, or a lawyer, a plumber, a pipe fitter, or a preacher, or whatever. The judgment was does he know you? The Bible, people say, do you know the Lord? And they'll say, yeah, we know the Lord. But the Bible says that the devil and his angels know him. The real question is, does he know you?
I really think that there should be less of a divide between us and more of a, there's a lot of us that politics divide us, when if you really think about it, the average American income's probably around $40,000, and politicians make $175 a year. So if you believe any politician on either side of the fence cares about you or knows what it's like to be you, then you've already lost the battle, I think. So I think the biggest thing is to come together and treat people the way you want. Like, what you want to do with your life isn't my business. What I want to do with my life isn't your business. You know what I mean? Just give people the same courtesy you'd give yourself or would want. Because we all live, we live in small town Clyde, Ohio. There's a lot of different stuff out in the world. I think the Marine Corps, I saw people from every race, different religions, every background you can think of. People that came from rich families, people that came from dirt poor, real ghetto towns like Compton, like hardcore towns, bad livings, great livings. I met guys from all over the world, guys that weren't even American citizens that joined the Marine Corps to fight for the country. I had a guy from Ghana, Africa, that joined, not American citizen, fought, went over with us. So I think you just treat people the way you want to be treated, and the bigger picture outside of here doesn't affect you as much. I don't want to say bigger picture because it's not more important, but you see all the news with you're never going to see good stuff on the news. So if you watch the news and buy into it, it's going to be hate forever. But if you're just good to the people around you and let people do their thing and you do your thing, then we'd probably have a little bit better community and get rid of politicians, or term limits at least. But it's all about how you treat others.
One of the first things my wife said when we came here on this trip, she was like, man, the people just seem more friendlier. And I just laughed at her. I was like, well, in Colorado Springs, it's a big city. It's a booming city. People don't have time to associate like they do here in Clyde. Mm-hmm. And that's why we like coming back to see the family and friends. So
That's good, John.
Clyde's always been that way.
Yeah.
My uncle served. I had a few uncles that served in Vietnam and stuff, and they're the ones that need to be thanked, because they didn't get treated well at all. Mm-hmm. Compared to them, we got treated very well. The Vietnam veterans, like my uncles, they didn't get treated well at all. Yeah. So, thank you for supporting the vets, and it's good to be home. I like to come home and visit.
Yes, the veterans of the Clyde area here, through the VFW here in Clyde, the people don't realize how much the veterans do to this community. Last year, our VFW donated over $40,000 back into the community throughout the year. So I just wanted to let them know that the VFW here, our veterans here in Clyde, are trying to make Clyde better.